After my checkup, I sat in the corridor. My son was speaking with the doctor inside, and I, like a trusting old man, believed he was looking out for me. But an orderly came over and whispered, "I heard your son asking to file the papers so you wouldn't get treatment." He said, "He won't last long. Why waste money?" I froze, my heart pounding. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid for my health. I was afraid of my own son. My name is Arthur Hale. I am 72, a grandfather, a widower, and a man who spent 4 decades under sun and snow turning one pair of rough hands into a house, a small lake cabin, and enough savings to make my granddaughter's life easier than mine. My son Daniel knows every stick of furniture I built and every acre I paid for one deadline at a time. He also knows what I have always said, sometimes like a joke and sometimes like a vow. When I go, what I built goes to family. I came up a carpenter and stayed one, moving from apprentice to lead hand to the man who got the call when a door would not hang square. I kept a paper ledger until the day the suppliers forced me onto software. I was never the cheapest bid, but I finished on schedule, and I did not leave Nails proud. The work paid enough to buy a modest house in town and a 1/4 acre by the lake when the seller wanted cash and a handshake. It took years to pay both off, and I paid them off. The house is a 3-bedroom with a deep porch and a roof I reshingled after the 2013 hailstorm. The foundation is dry, the wiring is safe, and the furnace gets serviced each fall. I built the oak dining table and the cherry cabinets myself. The grandfather clock in the corner came from my father. I rebuilt its movement in 1989 and it still keeps time. Nothing here is fashionable. Everything here works. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. 17 miles out sits the cabin. 1 story, cedar-sided, facing east to the water. The well was serviced last spring. The septic was pumped 2 summers ago. The dock is shared, and the right-of-way is recorded. I keep an aluminum boat with a small motor under a tarp and a set of oars in case the motor acts up. The windows open clean, the screens are patched where needed, and the firewood is stacked off the ground. The neighbors know me by name, and I know theirs. My belongings are straightforward. I have 2 rifles and a shotgun in a safe, registered and clean. I have tool chests arranged by task. Finished carpentry, framing, plumbing odds and ends, and electrical. The workbench holds bins labeled for screws, anchors, and sandpaper. In a fireproof box are birth certificates, our marriage license, insurance policies, titles, and my will. Copies live in a bank box at the credit union. Margaret's letters are in a sealed container, her quilt is folded in the hall closet, and family photos sit in the den where anyone can reach them. Money is not complicated. A pension arrives on the 1st, Social Security on the 3rd. 2 certificates of deposit roll every 6 months. A savings account holds what I do not need for bills. The truck is owned outright and insured. The house and cabin are insured. I do not carry a balance on my cards, and I do not borrow against what I cannot replace. Family is why any of it matters. Margaret is gone, but the home we kept together remains orderly and open to the people who come through it with good intentions. My daughter Elise lives out of state, teaches school, and calls on Sundays. My granddaughter Maya is 14, quick to learn, and does not waste words. Maya is Elise's daughter. We keep our weekly rhythm even with her living out of state. Daniel is my son. That is permanent. He grew up in these rooms and on that dock. He knows where I keep my papers and when my appointments are. He has driven me to the bank and the hospital and has the numbers to both. All my life I have kept one rule in view. What I built goes to family. I meant care, not spoils. I meant roofs that do not leak, a cabin that stays in the family name, and enough saved so a girl like Maya can choose a school for its fit, not its price. I worked for that, line by line, board by board, and until recently, I did not think I would ever have to defend it. It started on a Thursday morning while I was sweeping sawdust off the garage floor. I felt a tight band across my chest and a thump in my neck that did not match my breathing. I sat on the step and waited for it to pass. It did not. My hands were steady, but my breath came short. I went inside, put on the cuff, and watched the numbers climb. 186 over 98, pulse over 100. I took a baby aspirin and called the nurse line on the back of my insurance card. The nurse listened, asked me to describe the pain, and told me to come in now. Not tomorrow, she said. Now. Elise was at work out of state. I called Daniel. He picked up on the first ring. "I'll be there in 10, he said. "Don't call an ambulance. No point paying for the ride." He arrived in 8, helped me to the truck, and buckled me in with brisk hands. On the drive, he kept his voice low and even. "Probably nothing," he said, eyes forward. "We'll do urgent care first, not the ER, unless they insist. Better billing. Do you have your card?" I handed it over. He slid it into a black folder he keeps for important documents, along with copies of my old healthcare papers I had signed years back after Margaret died. At the clinic, he parked at the curb and walked me in. He answered the desk questions before I could: address, medications, emergency contact. When they asked for a primary number, he gave his. When they asked about a healthcare agent on file, he said, "Yes, me," and tapped the folder. The receptionist looked at me for confirmation. I nodded. Breathing took most of my attention. They checked my vitals, took an EKG, and frowned the way staff do when they will not say anything until a doctor does. The physician assistant listened to my chest and said she wanted me upstairs for observation and labs. Daniel nodded before I did. He stayed close, steadying me by the elbow as if I were already unsteady. Upstairs, they put a bracelet on my wrist, moved me into exam room 4, and clipped a pulse ox to my finger. The doctor introduced herself and asked about symptoms. I told her what I could. Daniel filled in the rest without looking at me, facts lined up neat and accurate. When she said she would be back with results and a plan, Daniel lifted the folder a few inches and asked, "Can I speak with you privately to make sure we are aligned about his wishes?" The doctor glanced at me. "If your father is comfortable with that." "I'm comfortable," I said. My chest felt tight but manageable. The nurse adjusted the clip on my finger and told me to rest. Daniel followed the doctor into her office with his folder tucked tight to his side. I sat on the plastic chair in the corridor because the room felt too small. The clock at the nurse's station ticked loud. Through the small window in the door, I could see his suit jacket, too dark for a weekday, and the doctor's white coat. I could not make out the words, only the tone. The doctor measured. Daniel smooth. He talks that way when he wants something he should not have. A cart squeaked by, and an orderly slowed beside me. He was young, with a coffee stain on his scrub pocket and a name badge turned backward. He looked at the door, then at me, and lowered his voice. "Sir," he said, careful, "you should know what he's asking in there." I felt my chest tighten, the kind of pressure a man blames on bad coffee. "Go on." "He told the doctor he holds your paperwork. He asked about marking you for comfort care only. He asked if they could note no resuscitation, no ICU, no dialysis if it ever came to that. He said, he's old school. He wouldn't want any extreme measures, right? Then he added, he has limited time. Let's be practical with the costs." The hallway got small. I heard the clock at the nurse's station tick loud, a cheap wall clock that never stops. My hands felt empty without a tool in them. The orderly glanced toward the room again. "He asked where to file financial hardship forms," the young man said. "Said he needed to make sure the hospital didn't burn resources on you." Those were his words. "I don't want trouble. If it was my father—" He did not finish. He did not need to. "Thank you," I said. My voice came out even. I looked at his badge, memorized his first name, and the number printed small underneath. A man remembers what he may need later. The door opened. Daniel walked out wearing his patient face, the one he uses for employers and funerals. He tucked a brochure into his folder as if it were nothing, as if it did not decide anything. The doctor stayed inside, tapping at a keyboard. "All set, Dad," he said, voice light. "Follow up next month. Nothing urgent. Let's get you home." I stood slowly. My legs worked just fine. "What did you discuss?" "Options. Mostly routine. We agreed to avoid unnecessary interventions. You know you, right? No point making you miserable with hospital stuff you don't want." He smiled like a man doing me a favor. "We're aligned." Aligned. The word sat wrong in my ear. Behind his glasses his eyes were dry and quick. No shine, no second look. He guided me down the corridor with a hand at my elbow, just enough pressure to look like care. As we passed the nurse's station, the doctor looked up and gave a brief nod to Daniel. Not to me. The nod of a man who thinks the person with the folder is the one in charge. The elevator doors closed. Daniel checked his watch. "You hungry?" "We could grab something quick, then swing by the bank." "We need to talk about consolidating accounts, Dad. I've been looking at the way your savings are spread out. It is inefficient. Fees add up, inefficient," I repeated. "Yes, also the cabin. Property taxes are going up again. If we list it now, in this market, it might cover—" He caught himself. "We should get ahead of it. Before winter." "We?" I said. "You, me, the family." He said family the way a man says inventory. "I can handle the paperwork. Transfer on death deeds, clean and simple. No mess later." On the way out, I asked to use the restroom and stepped instead into a small alcove with a poster about patient rights. I read it twice. The letters near the bottom mattered. You have the right to make decisions about your medical care, including the right to appoint and remove your health care agent. The print was plain as a 2x4. I ran a finger under the line and kept it there until my pulse calmed. When I came back, Daniel was on his phone, speaking low. He saw me and ended the call. "All good?" "All good," I said. We rode home with the radio off. He filled the silence. "You know, Dad, you've done so well. It would be a shame to see it drained by the system. We have to be strategic. Focus on quality of life. When it's time, it's time. No heroics." He glanced over. "That was what you wanted, right? You always said you don't want to be kept going by machines." He used my own old words like a crowbar. I have said those things years ago over breakfast, before I had a granddaughter who asks about my stories and a doctor who writes limited interventions after a conversation I was not in. "Let's keep things simple," he said, easing into our driveway. "I'll meet you inside. Just going to send a quick email." He stayed in the truck, typing with his thumbs. I stood by the hood and looked at the reflection of my face in the paint. The same lines, the same beard I trim on Saturdays. I waited until he pocketed the phone and followed me in. Inside, he went straight to the dining table, the oak one I built, and spread his folder open. He laid out a pen, a legal pad, and a printed checklist like he was staging a meeting. "First," he said, tapping the pad, "we'll contact your primary and get everything in writing about comfort measures only. No confusion later. Next, the bank. It is best if I'm the sole agent on your accounts. Simplifies things if anything happens." "If anything happens," I said. "Dad, I am trying to protect you." He smiled again, thin. "I'm protecting what you built from being wasted." He used the word wasted without blinking. I pulled out a chair and sat. He remained standing, as if the air stood easier at his height. He slid a paper toward me. It was a pre-filled healthcare agent form. My name, his handwriting on the witness lines. My part blank. "Go ahead and sign," he said. "We can drop it by the clinic this afternoon. I already talked to them. They know to expect it." "How did they know to expect it?" I asked. I was proactive, he said. That's my job here. He held the pen like a man holding a key. I looked at it and did not reach for it. Next, he said, and produced a bank authorization form. This lets me move funds between accounts to avoid fees and unnecessary expenditures. I'm better positioned to handle it, Dad. You know that I glanced at the top of the page and read the bank logo, the small print. He had already filled in the routing numbers. He knew them by heart or had them written somewhere he felt was safe. Daniel, I said, what did the doctor say about my prognosis? He watched my face. He said your tests are unchanged. He said we should plan for the long term, but not be foolish if something sudden happens. That was a neat arrangement of words. It could cover any outcome. It also meant the doctor had not used the word terminal. Daniel had. He tapped the healthcare form again. We need to be clear, Dad. No ventilators, no CPR. Comfort only. I always said I would make my own decisions, I said. You can, with my help. He kept his voice even. But we have to be realistic about costs. 5 figures for a week in ICU is not a good use of... He stopped himself, but not fast enough. Not a good use of what? Of money. Of my money. The word hung in the air without being spoken. He regrouped quickly. Look, this is not about money. It is about dignity. He pushed the pen closer until it rested against my wrist. He stood close enough that I could smell the cologne he only wears when he expects to win something. His eyes did not soften. He was calm, coordinated, efficient, cold. I set the pen down, perpendicular to the paper, and folded my hands. I will review everything, I said. He exhaled through his nose, a small sign of impatience he used to have as a boy. You do not need to review. I've done the legwork. Trust me. Trust me. The phrase came easy to him. It did not land where it used to. Let us take a break, I said. Coffee? He checked his watch. I cannot. I have to meet someone. Sign these and I'll swing back at 4. We can go to the bank before they close. He stacked the forms with practiced hands, aligned the edges, and left them at my spot on the table. He picked up his folder and his pen and gave me a quick pat on the shoulder, like a manager ending a meeting. At the door, he paused. Dad, he said, do not make this harder than it needs to be. He closed the door gently. He always closes doors gently when people are watching. I sat in the quiet and looked at the papers. The sun moved across the floorboards by the inch. I took out a scrap of paper and wrote down what mattered. The doctor's name on the door, the orderly's first name and badge number, the time on the clock, the phrases Daniel used, the bank forms he chose. I wrote down the word he would not say out loud. Then I put the forms back into his neat stack and slid them a few inches away. My son thought he had set the plan in motion. He had. Just not the one he imagined. This is what I know. I am still the patient. I am still the account holder. And I am still the man who built what sits on this lot and by that lake. My name is on the deeds, the titles, and the policy pages. My signature is the hinge. He needs it. That is leverage. This is what I do not know. How far he has already tried to reach without me. What he said to the doctor while I sat outside. Whether he has called the bank pretending to be my agent. Whether there is already a draft deed sitting in some folder with my cabin's name typed on it. I do not like gaps like that. Gaps get people hurt. I have a son. That does not change. But a son can hold a folder the way a thief holds a crowbar. That is what I saw today. He moved like a man finishing a checklist, not like a man worried about his father's next breath. He used my own old words as if they were handles, no machines, no heroics, without asking if the man who said them years ago still says them now. He talked about costs like he was discussing lumber prices. He did not blink when he said waste. When did he learn to measure me that way? Was it the first time I covered his shortfall at the car lot that failed? Was it when I signed for his truck because his credit was soft? Was it when I paid the private school deposit for his kids to buy him time? I told myself I was helping. Maybe I taught him that I would absorb damage, and he started planning for more. I am not going to shout. Shouting makes men sloppy. Paper makes them careful. The hospital will have logs. The bank will have call notes. The county will have records if he even breathed near my land with a form in his hand. I will go where the records live and ask for copies. If anyone hesitates, I will ask them to read the poster that lists my rights. I need allies. The orderly who spoke to me is young, but he has a clear head. The nurse who checked the clip on my finger watched Daniel and did not like what she saw. The doctor may have been steered. She can be unswayed by a correction in writing. The bank manager knows me by name. The county clerk knows what a forged hand looks like. A lawyer who understands locks will know what needs to be changed first. I will start at the hospital. Compliance first, not the front desk. I will ask for my chart, the notes, the entries Daniel made or requested. I will take copies, not just look. If there is any attempt to put decisions in his hands without my consent, I will revoke it in writing and file the revocation where they cannot misplace it. I will change my healthcare agent to someone who understands the difference between comfort and neglect. Elise is decent and steady. If she feels the weight is too much, my second choice will be a person who has no stake in my accounts. Then the bank. I will sit with the manager and review every authorization. Anything with Daniel's name as sole agent will be revoked. Dual signatures on big transfers, written alerts on any activity, notes on the file. Do not accept instructions by phone unless I am present and can answer a verification question he cannot guess. I have an old question that no one but me could answer, and even I have to think a moment to get it right. Then the county. The recorder's office will show if there is a pending transfer on death deed or a reserved instrument number with my parcel on it. If there is even a draft, I will note the date and who requested it. I will move what can be moved out of reach with proper structure. A trust with clear terms. A trustee who is not Daniel. A distribution to Maya when she is old enough, with conditions that build her up instead of turning her into a target. I am not doing this only to block him. I am doing it to make sure the people who have taken care of me, the nurses who answer at 2 a.m., the neighbors who check on the cabin after a storm, do not have to fight a son who treats them like obstacles. I will put in place a plan that does not depend on anyone's good mood. He thinks I am tired. I am tired. But I have done hard work while tired before. I worked under January roofs with wind in my sleeves. I can sit in an office with a clipboard and be just as steady. Part of me still wants to believe he made a mistake, a bad hour, a rush to act. I test that thought and it does not hold. He did not act like a man in a bad hour. He acted like a man executing steps. The folder was too ready. The forms were pre-filled. The talking points were practiced. He had called the clinic ahead of time. He had the bank authorizations printed. That is not panic. That is planning. If I love him, and I do, because that is a fact that does not depend on his choices, then the only honest way to love him now is to stop him. To put up guardrails he cannot climb, to make the cost of crossing a line higher than the reward he thinks waits on the other side. I gave him chances when he was young because a boy needs room to turn. He is not a boy now. He is a man trying to shorten his father's life on paper. That cannot stand. Punishment is a blunt word. I do not like blunt words unless they fit. This one fits. He will feel the loss of easy access. He will feel the weight of an investigation if there needs to be one. He will learn that there are clauses in contracts that wake up when a borrower acts without honor. He will learn that scholarships can grow where his inheritance shrinks. He will read a letter that uses his full name and tells him to stay away from accounts and decisions that are not his. He will understand, maybe for the first time, that consequences are not anger. They are structure. I will not tell him any of this today. I will let him believe his timeline is intact. He will come back at 4 with his pen and his smile. He will expect a signature. I will pour coffee and slide the papers back untouched. I will say I have questions. I will ask him to explain each line. I will watch his eyes when he reaches the clauses that hand him my breath. Then I will put the stack in my drawer, lock it, and walk him to the door. Tonight I will put a new notebook in my pocket. I will write down names, times, and exact words. I will carry that notebook to offices and sit straight-backed and unhurried until the copies are in my hand. I have built houses with less. Before lunch I hit 3 places. I moved slow and steady, the way you carry a pane of glass. First stop? The hospital. Not the front desk, the little back office where they keep the copier humming. I gave them my name and asked for anything my son had said or asked for in the last 2 days. The woman there, Marisol, gray hair, kind eyes, printed a stack. On top, a short note saying he'd pushed for comfort only, asked for a do not resuscitate packet, and talked about costs. Another page showed he'd tried to make himself my only contact, and a third request I did not expect, a hospice consult from him with financial hardship scrawled in the reason box. No paperwork attached, just his word. "Do you want to change who speaks for you?" Marisol asked, quiet. "I do," I said. "I'll bring it back signed today." Second stop, the pharmacy. I asked for my blood pressure refill. The pharmacist came out from the back. "Arthur," he said low, "your son called to put your refills on hold. Said hospice would be adjusting things soon." "Do not hold them," I said. "We won't," he said. "I can lock your profile. No one changes anything without a code. Pick one. I picked one only Margaret ever knew." He typed it in and slid the bottle across the counter, resting his hand on it until I looked him in the eye. "You call me if anyone tries anything," he said. "I'll stand in the way." Third stop, the bank. I sat in the manager's office, Connie, who has watched me deposit checks since my hair was still dark. She pulled up my file and nodded. "He called," she said. "Tried to move $18,000 to another bank. Said you would not be around long, and that he needed to step in." She tapped her screen. "We blocked it." "Want me to put a big red note on your accounts? No phone moves and nothing large without you here in person." "Yes," I said. "Print that note for me." She did. The words were plain. I folded the page and put it in my pocket like a nail set. I drove to the county office next. The clerk typed my parcel number and frowned. "There's a number held for a deed that would pass your cabin to someone when you die," he said. "Not recorded. Waiting on a signature." "Whose name?" I asked. "Daniel Hale," he said. He printed the screen. At the bottom, my name was typed neatly under a blank line meant for a pen I had not held. On the way home, I swung by the lake. I parked where my tracks would not show and walked up the porch. Hank, my neighbor, came over from his yard. "You missed them," he said. "Who?" "Realtor and your boy," he said. "Yesterday. Took pictures. Asked me where the line runs by the big rock. Your boy told the realtor you were transitioning soon. Tried to figure out how fast the septic would clear for a sale." "Did they go in?" "I told them not without you," he said. They didn't like that. Back home, the answering machine blinked. Nicole, Daniel's wife, left a bright, brisk message. "We have a mobile notary at 4:30. Please do not drag this out. The taxes are due and we need to think about the big picture." My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. He meant it for Nicole, but he sent it to me. "Doctor agrees no heroics. If he balks, we'll say he always said that. Notary 4:30. If we get the health stuff and deed done today, we list the cabin next week. Make sure the truck title is ready. I spoke to the bank. Once they understand, they'll cooperate. Do not let him call Elise. She'll complicate this." I read it twice. There was not a breath of me in it, just a checklist. Whatever was still soft in me went firm. Not rage. Action. I lined up the hospital notes, the pharmacy printout, the bank denial, the county page, and Hank's warning on my table. I changed the passwords I knew he might guess. I put the spare cabin keys somewhere he cannot find. I moved the folders he thinks are in the hall closet. I wrote down 3 calls to make and underlined each name. Then I picked up the phone and called a tough local attorney whose card I kept after Margaret died. She answered on the second ring. I did not give her law. I gave her facts. My son is trying to shut off my care, sell my cabin, and get into my money. I have names, times, and papers. I want him out of my decisions and off my accounts. I want everything that matters tied down tight. Bring it all, she said. We'll fix this. I'll be there in an hour, I said. I slipped the printouts into a manila folder and put it under my arm. The sun had moved another inch across the floor. At 4:30 my son would be back with a notary and a smile. He was expecting signatures. He was going to get a closed door. And a father who finally stopped being polite. Now it's time for my revenge. I'll show my son that it's too early to write me off so easily. I met a sharp local attorney. Riley dropped the stack on her desk and we moved fast. She stripped Daniel out of my medical decisions, named Elise instead, and sent the clinic a signed notice while I watched. She called my bank, added in person only to every account, and set a simple rule. Nothing big moves without me at the desk. Then she filed quick papers to put the house and cabin under my control in a family trust. No surprises, no listings behind my back. Witnesses lined up in minutes. The pharmacist wrote that Daniel tried to freeze my meds. The bank manager wrote that he tried to move $18,000 and said I wouldn't be around long. The hospital's compliance lead confirmed any change needs my signature. Hank agreed to tell a judge about the realtor at the cabin. All dated, signed, ready. Court, 9 a.m. tomorrow. She handed me a 1-page script. Speak slow, stick to facts. She also gave me a pocket recorder. If he pushes tonight, use it, she said. I called Elise, she's my health agent now, and told her to be at my door by 8:30. She caught the last flight in, drove straight from the airport, and took a personal day to stand with me in court. I moved spare keys and papers where Daniel won't find them. I changed the passwords he might guess. At 4:30, he arrived with Nicole and a notary, wearing that same calm face and holding the same folder. I clicked the recorder in my pocket and let him talk. When he slid the forms over, I slid them back. No, I said. We'll discuss this in front of a judge in the morning. His smile fell off. He left without a signature. I set my clothes for court, packed the folder, and put my boots by the door. He wanted an easy end. He is getting a beginning he did not plan for. Courthouse mornings smell like dust and coffee. I sat at the petitioner's table with Riley's binder open and the order form already clipped to the top like a promise. Elise was behind me, quiet, hands folded tight. Across the aisle, Daniel had a new lawyer and the same expression he wore at hospitals and banks. Professional calm that never quite reached his eyes. Nicole stared straight ahead, jaw set. They looked like people arriving for a closing, not a hearing. When the judge took the bench, the room changed temperature. I stood when told, sat when told, watched her eyes as she skimmed our file. Measured, sharp. The kind of person who has seen families try to turn a living man into paperwork. Riley spoke in clean lines. 3 moments, 3 pushes. Medical, money, property. She stacked our proof where the judge could see the dates. I kept my eyes on Daniel. His gaze slid everywhere but to me. I thought about the first time I put a hammer in his hands, how proud he'd been to hit a nail straight. That boy was gone. The man across from me treated breath like a budget item. I could feel my pulse in my thumb the way I used to when I checked for plum, steady enough to trust. Connie took the stand and laid out the call from the bank. Time, amount, the sentence that mattered. The judge wrote it down without reacting, which is worse for a man like Daniel than a lecture. Then the pharmacist gave his simple version. Son called, wanted refills paused for hospice. I refused. Another note from Marisol at the hospital. Requests logged by the son, nothing valid without my signature. Hank's statement landed like a boot on the porch. Realtor, photos, transitioning soon. Each piece clicked into place. I did not need to look at Riley to know we had a frame. Then came the text he'd meant for Nicole. The one about not letting me call Elise, about no heroics, about listing the cabin next week. Paper does not tremble when you read it out loud. That helps. The judge ran a finger under the lines and looked up finally, not at Riley, but at Daniel. My son controlled his face the way he always has, like holding a board steady while someone else cuts. For the first time, the blade was not in his hand. Last, the recording from my kitchen. I didn't listen to the words so much as watch the judge take in the tone. Efficiency, certainty, that small, practiced patience he uses when people get in the way. The part where he mentioned the notary like a delivery, the part where he pressed the pen to my wrist. Those are the notes that travel farther than any sentence. Daniel's lawyer tried a few soft phrases, honoring long-stated wishes, avoiding confusion, managing responsibilities. They sounded thinner each time he said them. The judge turned a page and set her pen down. That small movement felt like a nail set finishing a job. This is what I thought while we waited. Love is not the same as permission. A father's name on a deed does not guarantee the son who shares it will act like family. And a man who can count dollars can also count days if you let him. I remembered Daniel at the cabin with that realtor, pointing, checking his watch, trying to find the fastest route from my porch to a sale sign. I remembered the pharmacy call, the hold the pills order. That is the one that burned. When the judge spoke, she didn't use many words. She didn't need to. Her order fit the facts like a well-cut joint. My decisions are mine. Any change requires my say. My son is out of my medical file, out of my accounts, off my property. No bank transfers by his voice. No comfort-only requests from him. No keys. No listings. If he pushes again, the sheriff pushes back first and then the judge. I looked at Daniel when the bailiff handed him his copy. For a heartbeat, he let the mask slip. Not regret, calculation hitting a wall. He had thought he could hurry me across a line and tidy up what I built. He had forgotten I still swing a hammer. We stepped into the hallway. Elise squeezed my shoulder once. She has Margaret's steadiness. Riley handed me my copy of the order and the little recorder. "Keep both," she said. I nodded. I already knew right where to file them at home. My thoughts on the walk to the truck came clear and simple, the way they used to when I drove between job sites. I am not angry. I am aligned. The house will stay where it is. The cabin will be there when Maya is ready to unlock it. The men and women who helped me, Connie the pharmacist, Hank, Marisol, reminded me that decency is a kind of backbone, too. I poured coffee from the dented thermos and watched steam lift into the cool air. The courthouse doors opened and closed behind us, a rhythm of strangers and their separate fights. My fight had lines now. My son had to stand on his side of them. My son wanted an ending. What he got was a line he cannot cross, and I was still here to draw it. 3 months later, the proof sat neatly in a file that did not leave my house. The hospital mailed a letter confirming what should have been obvious. My chart was corrected, Daniel removed from all contacts, and a note added in bold that any changes to my care require my say or Elise's. Marisol called to tell me they'd used my case to retrain staff about relatives who speak over a patient. The phrase made me smile. We had put a stop to that. My blood pressure settled once the pills kept coming on time. The tightness in my chest turned out to be a nudge, not a warning. The cardiologist adjusted a dose. I started walking the block after breakfast and could make it around twice by the second week. I kept the little recorder on top of the fridge for a while out of habit, then put it in a drawer. I was sleeping fine without it. The bank never wavered. Connie called to say the red note on my accounts was now the size of a stop sign. A week after court, Daniel tried one more time, an online transfer this round, a smaller amount, different wording. It bounced. They flagged the attempt, attached the order number, and closed the door in his face from 1,000 miles of wire away. I did not need to raise my voice. The system did it for me. The county stamped the trust papers the same day Riley sent them. The cabin and the house sit there now, calm and untouchable. The title shop that had held a slot for the deed to Daniel's name sent a short, dry note. File closed, no signature, no record. The realtor who walked my property with him left a flyer in Hank's mailbox a week later for some other lake place miles away. Not a word about mine. At the 2-week review, the judge read through the new updates in about a minute and extended the order without a speech. Daniel did not look at me. Nicole did once. A hard look, not an apologetic one. That told me all I needed about both of them. Then he did the insane thing. He walked into the recorder's office with a deed that transferred my cabin to himself. My name typed clean, my signature traced, and a fake notary stamp from a woman who'd been dead 2 years. He handed it over like a man dropping off dry cleaning. The clerk compared the signature to the real one in my file, scanned the stamp, and the system lit up red. 2 deputies from the courthouse detail were there before he finished his sentence. He was arrested at the counter with the forged deed still warm from the copier. No explanations, no misunderstanding. The evidence was in his hand. They added the judge's standing order to the charge sheet and walked him downstairs. His lawyer never got to spin a story. Within weeks, a jury looked at the paper, the camera footage from the title shop, the emails he'd sent about moving assets, and found him guilty of felony forgery and attempted theft. He went from suits to county orange. No probation, no deals, no second chances, just bars and a number. After that, there was nothing left to drain. My phone stayed quiet. My account stayed mine. I kept walking the block in the mornings and spent Saturdays at the cabin with Maya, tightening a hinge here, resealing a step there, after Elise and Maya stayed for the summer. The house stood, the lake stayed calm, and the leeches were gone for good. Elise came by with groceries and did not mention her brother. We talked about school and schedules. She put oranges in the bowl exactly the way Margaret used to. Later, I pulled the new scholarship website up on the old laptop and read the first application from a kid who wants to learn to weld. We approved it. Riley sent the check. That felt like the right direction for my time and energy. If Daniel's name shows up now, it is on court calendars and compliance logs. Not on my phone, not in my accounts, not on my porch. He chose the hard way. The hard way met him halfway. I did not have to carry it. Everything that mattered stayed where it belonged. The house, the cabin, my decisions, my quiet mornings. The leeches, as I started calling them, slid off when there was nothing left to take. That is what boundaries are for. Do you believe that my actions have been correct? Would you do the same in my place? Please share your opinion in the comments.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.